And Pogba leaves for McTominay! Magnificent! It's Moraes, he's done it again! He has fizzed that into the bottom corner. Vardy for Chowdhury. And set for Madison! He is one bright young thing! Alisson saw Salah running from his own half, so onside here, Mo Salah. Salah to settle it! In front of the Kop! There's no feeling like that feeling! And now you've got to believe them. You have got to believe them.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 3PL podcast, week 7. Thank you so much to everyone who's been tuning in every week. We really appreciate it. We're going to be going through last weekend's games and also predicting the games coming up on this weekend. We're going to start off, though, at Goodison Park, the Merseyside derby. What a game. Absolute scenes from start to finish. Goals, controversy, everything you could probably wish for. Who wants to start on this one?
Yeah, what a game of football we had. I mean, we had goals for both teams. We had controversial decisions, VAR drama, disallowed goals for dubious offsides, a red card towards the end. Just everything that you want in a Premier League game, really. Not necessarily if you're one of the fans of those two teams, because you'd probably want that to be a slightly less eventful game. But yeah, I think my main takeaway from it was that it's a shame in some ways that what was a brilliant game of football has been overshadowed by all the talk about controversy and decisions, whether they were right or wrong, how VAR was handled and all that side of things. The main talking point, obviously, has been the Virgil van Dijk injury caused by Jordan Pickford. There's been some really interesting opinions floating around about that as to what happened, what should happen to Pickford, whether it was fair or not. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think about that, considering some of the bizarre takes on it I've seen online over the past week.
I have a couple of things to mention on it. I think, one, I don't believe that Pickford in the game should have been given a red card in game because the ball was out of play at that point. However, I do think post-game, because of the seriousness of the injury and also the seriousness of how he went flying into the tackle, that he should be then banned post-game. Because the rules of the game is that once the ball's out of play, you can't be sent off, I believe. However, I don't fully understand how that works, because obviously you get players sent off in the tunnels and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, I must say I don't really understand the rule fully because, yes, the play was dead, but the tackle, regardless of whether it was a live or a dead play, I don't think a tackle like that should be okay, and regardless of the circumstance. I think it was a red card no matter how you look at it. Maybe VAR should be used in this way. The referee clearly saw it was a bad tackle, so he could have gone over to VAR. Regardless of whether the play was dead or not, I think this rule should maybe be changed retrospectively of this decision, because it's almost a career-threatening injury, really. You know, some players don't come back from ACL injuries. So the fact that Jordan Pickford made this tackle, got away with it, no repercussions, even a ban, like you said, nothing, just doesn't feel right with me. So I feel like something definitely should have been done in-game.
Yeah, I fully agree with it. It leaves a proper sour taste. It's the type of incident you really don't want to be watching or seeing in football, especially to argue the best centre-back in the world. You want to see him at his peak performing. We've obviously got the Euros coming up next year, and for him to be out now it's going to be a big 12 months.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure I totally agree that it shouldn't have been a red card in the game. I understand by the rules maybe it wasn't, but I just don't think that makes sense. In my opinion, if the ball was in play, then it's a red card tackle, so it's a red card. And if the ball's out of play, then it's violent conduct off the ball, so then it's a red card anyway. So I don't see how that doesn't get given. In my mind, it's a lot worse than what happened with the Martial-Lamela incident that we had last week, where Martial got a red card for effectively brushing someone's cheek, and then Pickford, that doesn't get any sort of action against him. I think we're all agreed that that just doesn't make sense, and there's clearly some sort of loophole in the laws of the game there that's gone horribly wrong for Liverpool and worked out really well for Pickford, who then went on to make a couple of pretty big saves in the game later on, potentially winning Everton the point that they got rather than Liverpool walking away with all three.
Yeah, like you said earlier, the controversy that has come from this game distracts from the match itself. It was such a great game to watch, and you think of the other red card that took place in the game as well, Richarlison's red cards. That was a straight red, and it was no different really to what Pickford did. So you could argue as well, just on that basis, that there were two red cards in isolated situations, no matter how you look at them. And it's a shame that these two tackles or red cards, not red cards, kind of lingered over this game because it really was a great game to watch, and I don't think it affected the players too much. Yes, Van Dijk walked off the pitch under his own power, so I think maybe the Liverpool players were unaware of how serious the injury was. And then you have that drama with Henderson's offside goal right at the very end. Personally, didn't quite see the offside there. It's one of the few ones where you look right down the line on the VAR and you're like, is he though? Is he offside? Because I really don't understand why they can't just zoom in to provide a little bit of clarity there, just to see if his elbow was beyond the line, because you just couldn't tell from where the camera angle was. Yeah, I mean, did you guys think it was offside?
Yeah, certainly not an offside that I would like to see given. It was marginal. It ruined what would have been a really great winning moment for Liverpool and for Henderson. I think the justification that I've seen of it is that because of the way we have the new handball law, which changes where the arm stops and the body begins, that meant that the upper arm in that instant was factored into the equation of what was offside and what was onside. But I just think with decisions that are that marginal, VAR is never going to get those decisions right from a fan's point of view, because they just don't. That's not the way we want to see the game played and the way we want to see the game officiated. It may have been correct from an absolute VAR point of view, but I just don't think that's really the way we want to see it in future.
To me, it's taken away the spirit of the game again. The offside rule was never designed to be catching people out on the millimetres of their arm or if their toes over the line. It was stopped and to stop the goal hanging. It was, and to be taken into the rule to this degree where they're spending minutes trying to work it out and work out, oh, is he on? Is there a fraction off? It's ruining a bit of the fun of the game. It's taking away goals out of the game. This is a late winner. That should be like people should be loving life. It shouldn't be people just sitting here trying to work out, is this perfect or not?
It's definitely distracted from the spectacle, from my opinion. Like, having a late winner, seeing Henderson run off, celebrate with his teammates, you think he's won it, and then all of a sudden you see from a replay that they bring up on the TV screen, and it's like, oh, okay, it's got the potential to be offside here. So then you have the whole 2-3 minute process where the referee has to decide, or the VAR official has to decide, in some office miles away from the actual game. For some reason, I don't know if I missed it, or I don't remember the referee going over to look at it himself on the TV screens. I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity for that to happen, make a decision on his own. Did he do that, or did I miss that?
I don't believe they have any input when it comes to offside. An offside decision is up in the VAR office only.
Yeah, okay, I think you're right.
Potentially another problem with it there. I don't really understand why the referee can't make his own decision on the pitch, and having all that evidence provided to them. I'm not sure why they don't use it at the game. Yeah, strange. And again, like I said earlier, it just detracts from the spectacle. That was a really, really good football match. Mane put Liverpool ahead very early on with a very simple goal, nice build-up play, and then Keane equalised, another really, really good corner from James Rodriguez, and Salah's goal late on in the second half was just an amazing finish from an amazing player, instinctive finish, volley straight into the corner. And then you look at another one of the form players in this game, Calvert-Lewin, with a Ronaldo-esque header jumping way above the defenders to keep his goal scoring run going. And it was just such a great game. And like, it's such a shame that all of these controversies and different decisions throughout the game have marred what was, a really, really good spectacle.
Yeah, from a footballing point of view, it was a really good start to the weekend, and it sort of set the tone for what was to come in terms of the drama back and forward between the games that we sort of saw throughout the rest of the weekend in a lot of the matches. The next game coming up was one of those, actually, the Chelsea 3, Southampton 3, a game that had it all really in terms of the drama of the goals and the Southampton looking to have got level and then immediately conceding again, and then obviously the equaliser right at the very end of the game. I thought it was a highly entertaining game. I'm sure you two probably found it slightly more stressful than I did, but it was definitely a good game of football, and a few sort of key points to look at there as well in terms of Werner getting his first goals, Havertz having an impact, some of Chelsea's signings starting to really look like they're settling in and making a bit more of an impact now. Yeah,
the majority of the first half was just a really tough watch as a Southampton fan. I thought we started really slowly, let Chelsea find their feet way too quick, and the fact that Timo Werner was obviously very eager to make an impact and get his first Premier League goals was quite evident. And yeah, he did that very early on. He scored 2 really, really good individual goals, made them for himself, finished them himself, kind of showed the calibre of player that we were all expecting. The player that scored 20 plus goals in Bundesliga last year and has done for the last couple of years. I think he's going to be a really important signing for Chelsea, as I said at the very, very start of the season. And yeah, Southampton was sort of lucky to get a goal just before half time. I think it was Havertz actually who gave the ball away, and Ings managed to capitalise. And then the second half, it kind of switched a little bit. I think Hassan Hutel definitely drilled the players at half time, said it wasn't good enough, and it wasn't good enough. And then Che Adams scoring a goal, a very, very poor mistake from Kepa, two mistakes actually within about 30 seconds, which pretty much gifted us the goal. And we were level for about 2 minutes before Havertz scored. And then, I guess we were pretty fortunate in the end to get the draw with a nice Theo Walcott assist at the end. So, all in all, it was such an entertaining game to watch. But as a Southampton fan, it was, very stressful to say the least.
Yeah, the heart rate was jumping up and down throughout the game. I have to say, Kepa, the mistakes he's making week in, week out has to be very worrying for the Chelsea fans, especially as they've signed Cech back out of retirement. That's a worry when you're bringing your 39-year-old ex-legend who's currently been working on their board back into your goal. That's got to be worrying. I guess it's another play, possibly just on a training day-to-day basis, just to give him a bit more experience, maybe be that wise head. And as we know, multiple winner of the Premier League, great experience, one of the greatest keepers we've ever had in the Premier League. So it is interesting that Lampard's made that decision. In terms of Werner, great performance by him. He really stepped up to the mark. His finishing was brilliant. He looked very pacey, very on the edge of the defence all throughout the game. But equally, I thought the partnership which Danny Ings and Shea Adams are starting to build is really promising. Shea Adams is showing his strength, his pace, the ability to kind of bully the defence and create spaces for Ings to get on. And the pass for the first goal I thought was brilliant. Really good pass through to Danny Ings, perfectly weighted.
Yeah, I think on that point of Adams and Ings, what was really impressive was the way they capitalised on that mistake from Kepa, because although, yes, he made a mistake, it wasn't a tap-in. It wasn't an easy situation to turn into a goal. They had to battle for the ball between them. Ings did well not to get in the way of Adams, to be honest, in terms of his movement to get out of the way. Just going back as well on what you said about Kepa and Cech coming in, I wouldn't be surprised in some respects if Cech's almost been brought in to provide that sort of experience and that level head around still a relatively young goalkeeper in Kepa, who's clearly struggling. Cech's maybe the person to sort of take him under his wing and sort of give him some advice, keep him calm, give him some sort of pointers on where he may be going wrong. And, maybe he'll turn him around. But yeah, it does seem strange that he's been sort of brought back into the playing squad. I don't imagine he's going to play in the Premier League unless something disastrous happens. But I for one, would actually quite like to see that. I think it would be brilliant to see him back out there with his head guard on.
Yeah, I see it more as a contingency for Chelsea bringing Cech back. I think, obviously, Kepa's had a very, very dodgy, patchy run that has done for some time now. But I think Mendy, actually, the player that they brought in the summer and kept a clean sheet yesterday in the Champions League against Sevilla, I think he's now going to play a number of games for Chelsea, starting games. So I imagine if he starts well, that'll probably be the end of Kepa in the Chelsea shirt. I think he'll probably be off in January if he's not going to be number one, because you've got Caballero at the club as well. And then, like you said, you've got Cech there now. So can't really see Kepa getting too much game time, especially when you've got that many goalkeepers in the squad. So, it'll be very interesting to see where Chelsea go next. But I imagine Mendy will be in for the weekend. Right, next up we have Manchester City Arsenal. A game that we built up quite a lot before the match, but it turned out to be a bit of a letdown, really. Didn't really get to the hype that we built it up to. And I'm not sure whether that's more to do with Arsenal's new resilient look, the new not getting beaten by many goals kind of mentality, or whether both teams just haven't really started properly this season. To me, I think it's a bit of both. I don't think City were at their best. I don't think Arsenal were at their best either. And it kind of showed, and one goal was enough to settle it in the end.
The two managers knowing each other so well, I wonder if they tactically, as well as what you just said there, Matt, I believe the fact that the two managers know each other to such a degree, it might be a reason why they kind of cancelled each other out. You had, obviously, Man City getting the goal through Sterling, but it was a really game lacking any incidents or any drama whatsoever. It was a very damp game. Not what you'd expect when you first look at these two teams playing against each other, but it's definitely what we got.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sterling getting the goal again is a positive for City. He's got another goal under his belt. Looks to be sort of their main source of goals this season. Although with Aguero coming back now, it'll be interesting to see how he fits back in. Will he hit top form straight away, or will he take a while? Sounds as though Gabriel Jesus is still out for a while, so you would imagine Aguero's been going to be starting most of their games. So yeah, I'm wondering whether we'll start to see more of the City that we're used to seeing now that he's back in the team. But then to counter that, they're obviously without De Bruyne now for a number of weeks, which I don't think we knew about last time we recorded the episode for last week. So that makes a big difference to City's sort of potency going forward. Yeah, and I think they suffered as a result of that this week. They clearly couldn't put those flowing moves together quite as well without his vision and passing. So, yeah, not the best win for City, but at the end of the day, it's 3 points, and they won't be too worried about how they got them, as long as they can carry on picking up those points throughout the next few weeks. And yeah, the other team from Manchester were playing away at Newcastle this weekend. Started off looking very good for Newcastle. They scored after 2 minutes, albeit with an own goal, but they got the goal. And yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I thought Newcastle actually looked like they were going to do really well in this game for the majority of it. And then sort of a real late show from Man United, sort of slightly reminiscent of the Fergie era, where they never used to always dominate the games, but always pop up with the goals at the end. And this time they got 3 goals right at the end and managed to win the game with what looks like a really comfortable scoreline. But I think the game overall, I don't think was quite as comfortable as you might think for them.
Yeah, I think for a very long period of the game, Newcastle definitely stood toe to toe with Manchester United and really battled it out with them. I think they had some really great opportunities. Wilson, in particular, had massive chance in the second half, which De Gea, in fairness to him, who's taken a lot of abuse and he's had his critics this season, pulled off a wonder save, got down low, managed to keep it out. But I think going onwards, I still believe Man United have a lot to do, even though with this big result of 4-1, like you said, their goals came very late. Like Fernandes was 86 minute, and on Fernandes, his penalties recently, he has that very interesting technique of his. It's like almost like the hop, skip, jump, and then tries to place it away. And I think keepers are starting to get on top of that. And I would wonder if Ollie's going to be trying to get him to take it a bit more, almost more seriously, more traditional, and pick a spot, whack it in.
Yeah, it was a strange performance for Manchester United. I think for large periods of the game, they didn't really hit form, didn't really find a pace. But then towards the end, I think the urgency kind of took over a little bit. The subs they made later on with Van der Beek coming on, Pogba coming on, and had that midfield like we were talking about at the start of the season, the midfield of De Beek, Pogba, and then Fernandes in front. I think this was the first time we saw all three mesh together, and that three together kind of provided just an impossible force for Newcastle to deal with. And at the end, Fernandes missed his penalty, but then he was instrumental in the build-up to both his own goal, which he finished really nicely, couldn't have placed it any better, and then also got an assist into Wan-Bissaka, which was a great goal as well. Yeah, although you could argue it wasn't vintage Manchester United the whole way through, and it definitely wasn't, but even that little like sign of life going forward is going to be really important for Manchester United. And obviously they can build on their Champions League win last night against PSG. Really good result away. You would think those two results are probably going to be instrumental if Ollie's going to get them back on track. Next up, one for Sunday's games. We had Sheffield United against Fulham. A game we didn't really rate too highly going in. We didn't really see where the goals are coming from in this one. Sheffield United have been very goal shy this season, as a Fulham. And it kind of played out exactly how we expected. Very cagey. Sheffield United dominating most of the possession, creating a number of good chances in the first half, but just unable to find that killer instinct. And McBurney was guilty of missing a number of key chances. And for Fulham, Mitrovic missed a whole host of really, really good chances. And for a team like Fulham, who rest their hopes so much on Mitrovic, to have him miss chances like this was just catastrophic for them. And yeah, they were pretty lucky to get a point in the end.
In terms of Mitrovic, it was an abysmal penalty. And to be honest, this whole game, that match was abysmal. Obviously, gave away the penalty for Sharp, missed his own. Fulham got saved by the Lookman wonder goal. Maybe not wonder goal, maybe that's a bit generous, but some brilliant play by him, some great movement. Got a little bit of luck to get through, but great finish in the end. It was,
as you said, Matt, Fulham really do rely on Mitrovic. And in some ways, one positive they can take from this game is that even though he had a bad game, they were saved almost by that great goal that Lookman scored. And it wasn't just the goal for me. He looked really lively for the whole time that he played. He looked their most exciting outlet. And I think if he can be someone that actually provides them a bit of another option to Mitrovic, then maybe they become that team that aren't so heavily reliant on one player. And that kind of then gives them another avenue and makes them slightly less predictable for other teams. So he could be a real positive spark for them. And it might also take a bit of the pressure off Mitrovic and make it a bit easier for him to just relax and do what he's good at.
Yeah, definitely. I think the signings actually that they made late on in the window had a good showing in this match, especially Adebayo at centre-back. I thought we had a really solid game, and it's nice to see a centre-back for Fulham at least look composed on the ball. And then you saw Ruben Loftus-Cheek in centre-mid, and I thought he had a good game too. And then you look at Lookman as well, who looks like he's, fully ready for the Premier League, and he took his goal really, really nicely. So positive signs for Fulham, if not 3 points. I think they can definitely build on this performance. Another team looking to build on a performance were Brighton, who took on Crystal Palace in the so-called M23 derby. I know it gets a lot of stick, but I think this match proved there is a bit of fire there, even if it's just between the players and not the fans. Quite a lot of controversy in this game, actually. There was a very early penalty, which I'm not sure everybody was convinced by. All the replays to me seemed it was like a little bit of a soft one. Either way, Zaha puts it away. And then from then on, it went exactly as I expected. Crystal Palace just sat back, didn't want to go forward anymore, kind of just wanted to grind out that 1-0 win, which we're so used to seeing from a Crystal Palace and a Roy Hodgson team. And they almost got away with it if it wasn't for the attacking endeavour that Brighton provided towards the end of the game. I thought they were really unlucky not to score in this game before they did, and they got the goal late on. And McAllister, in my opinion, just got them a very, very well served point.
Yeah, this season Palace are definitely winning the competition of the team I want to watch the least. Their matches are so tedious at times. They either get a goal and then they'll sit 10 deep, and even if they haven't got a goal yet, they'll have sit 10 deep and just have one up top, just running the lines. It's unbelievably tedious, and it's kind of weird to watch when you think they have wingers like Zaha, Townsend, Schlupp, all people who can run at players, but they just don't seem to want to play any style of football which could even help them to do a little bit more of that. What I would say is Dunk's red card was a bit of a horror show. That was an appalling tackle. But I don't think he did it through being malicious. I think it was a case of it was a centre-back who's in a striker's position and was desperate for the goal. Desperate for the goal which they deserved. Brighton were considerably the better team throughout, I think. And I think so far this season, they've played some great football at times. After watching them, I was thinking maybe one day Potter for England. Like, I'd rather watch his style of football than what we're getting at the moment through Southgate.
Yeah, it's a bold shout, but not necessarily a ridiculous one. I definitely think for the Brighton players, there was a sense of desperation towards the end. They must have been so relieved to at least get that goal and come away with 1 point. But I think they would still have been just really frustrated that they didn't get the 3 points in this game, because there was only one team that turned up to win that game, and it definitely wasn't Crystal Palace. Their fans, I think, are finding it really difficult to watch this season. I think, if I'm right, I don't think they had a single shot on target from open play during that game, which sums up the way they're playing. And if you're a fan of them, you'd just be thinking, well, you're probably quite glad that you're not having to go to the stadium at the moment, because you wouldn't want to be paying to go and watch that every week.
Yeah, towards the end of last season, I know they had a really bad spell of form, and although they started the season pretty well with a couple of good results, both at Old Trafford and eventually against Southampton, they just haven't built on that, and they've reverted back to their same old style, which is, it's disappointing to see, and I think it's something that we'll all have to get used to. On the opposite end of the scale, the next game had absolutely tons of excitement, tons of goals, and Peter, off you go, mate.
I mean, it was the perfect cliche of a game of two halves, wasn't it? The first half, Tottenham were just all over West Ham, complete control of the game, scored after 45 seconds, 3-0 up after 16 minutes, cruise control, looked easy. West Ham, we just didn't have an answer for them, except for maybe the last 5 minutes of that half when there was started to be a bit more pressure. We looked to find our feet moving forward, especially down the right-hand side. And then, second half, I was really surprised with the way Tottenham played. They just sat back. They didn't look to try and kill the game off. Yes, they had a couple of chances where they could have done, but those chances are going to come at some point during the half. They didn't really push to get the fourth goal. And you almost sort of could forgive them for that early on, thinking, well, there's no way that they're going to need that fourth goal. But then the comeback from West Ham at the end just showed such amazing fight and spirit from the players. Really, really impressed with it. It was great to see the passion and the enthusiasm from them, especially after that absolute worldie of a goal to equalise from Lanzini right at the end. I've seen a lot of Tottenham fans on social media been very sort of funny about it and going, oh, look, they're celebrating, they've got a draw like they've won the World Cup. I think if any team's 3-0 down in the 82nd minute and they go on to get a point from the game, they deserve to celebrate however they want to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that front. In terms of the Spurs side, I'll just quickly talk about their opening 20 minutes where they looked at, for that 20 minutes that they were unstoppable. I was worrying that they're going to be smashing you 6, 7, 8-0. That Kane-Son partnership is quite possibly the most frightening attack in the league at the moment. And if Bale can... He showed glimpses of that striking ability and what he can bring to that front three. I think they're going to be a very scary attack, but they have such fragile defence at the moment, and it seems to be once they get under a little bit of pressure, they can be very quick to kind of bottle it and get a bit scared. So it'll be interesting to see which side Spurs will come out. And they seem a proper Jekyll and Hyde team, so it's interesting to see where they're going to go.
Yeah, I agree. It was interesting game from both sides. If you're a West Ham fan, you must be overwhelmed and like delighted with how it ended. But as a Spurs fan, at half time, you must have been like, this is probably the best we played all season. Despite that rout at Old Trafford, I think that was probably all round, it was, one of the most impressive spells of football I've seen. That first 20 minutes from Tottenham, I think they would have blown any Premier League team out of the water after that. And it's surprising, like you said, Peter, that they didn't build on that in the second half. I think Mourinho would have said, the game's not dead at 3-0, let's get some more. Like, you can tell he's that kind of manager who wants to drill a game home, not just rely on a 3-0 lead. And the fact that they didn't make too many changes once they conceded the one goal after 81 minutes kind of surprises me. They brought on Bale and arguably should have scored to seal the game at 3-2. Really nice bit of skill to beat the West Ham defender, and then he just puts his shot wide, which was, weird to see because, he's very reliable in front of goal. And then Lanzini comes on the pitch at the same time. The ball ends up at his feet outside the box in the 90-plus minute, and he fires it into the top corner for probably what is the goal of the season so far. So, really good highs from both sides, but West Ham must leave this game feeling a lot more positive than Tottenham because, the way they finished that game, getting the result, no team's come back to get a point in the Premier League game after being 3 goals down after 18 minutes. So fair play to West Ham. I don't think anyone saw them getting anything in this game, especially after the first 20 minutes. But yeah, absolutely massive result.
Yeah, and it's a great sign for West Ham going forward. They've already picked up the momentum from the 2 previous games. At 3-0 down, I imagine, Peter, you'd be worried, oh no, this could be another start of a bit of a bad patch. But to save that game, the players must be going into the next week with a great amount of confidence, knowing that they can battle away. Even when their back's up against a wall, they can pull off a result, that must be such a confidence booster for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another boost that we get going into the next game is the signing of Ben Rama, which finally went through literally at the last possible moment it could go through on the deadline day for signings from the Championship. But yeah, I'm excited to see how he fits into the team. Probably unlikely that he'll start the game against Man City at the weekend, but it's possible that he'll come on. But yeah, I think the team will be going into the game with a real good sort of sense of morale around the team. Everyone will be confident. They'll all be really pleased with the way they've performed and have that sort of excitement boost coming off the end of that game. So hopefully we go in with a positive attitude. Still think there's some defensive issues that need sorting out for West Ham because the goals we conceded, as much as they were good play from Tottenham, there was definitely some weaknesses in there for us. But yeah, really good game to watch, to be honest. Not for the most of it, but the end of it made it all worth it.
Yeah, just going back on Ben Rama, I think he's a really good signing for West Ham. Saw a lot of him at Brentford, a couple of seasons on the brink of the Premier League, should have probably got promoted last year. But he looked influential in every game almost for Brentford. And I think if he does find his feet in the Premier League, he's going to be almost Payet-esque, I think, because of the way he plays, his ball control, his ability to score goals. Yeah, I really do think he could bed in and be a great signing for West Ham.
So moving on to one of the most informed teams in the league, Aston Villa, getting another win and against Leicester, who really didn't turn up to this game. Yes, they've got quite a few injuries, but it wasn't a performance which I think any of us would have expected from them. Villa throughout the game seemed to be the team in control, and I definitely wouldn't say it was a snatch and grab, even though it was a late winner.
Yeah, Leicester looking really thin on the ground, really, aren't they? Obviously, they've got quite a few injuries to key players, Vardy being the obvious one. But I think it maybe sort of backs up a bit the points that we all made when we spoke about them pre-season, with the fact they've not made many signings. Maybe they didn't need to strengthen their first team, because we've seen when their first team are playing together, they're still really good. But the fact that they don't have that squad depth that can still compete is going to be a worry for them. Because I think from what I understand, some of those injuries aren't necessarily short ones. Some of those players could be out for quite a decent amount of time. And yeah, not looking great that they've not been able to score now for a while. Certainly Vardy being missing is a big issue for them. What do you think, Matt? Is Vardy sort of the only player that makes Leicester tick?
Yeah, I think the last 2 games have basically suggested that he is their only player that really can make things happen for them. Unfortunately, I know Leicester fans are going to argue that they have more than one player that can change the game, but at the moment it doesn't really seem like it. Jamie Vardy now hasn't started the last 2 games. They failed to score in both games. I'm not sure how bad this injury is, but they've got Europa League games coming up now as well, which on top of Premier League games every week is just going to be difficult to keep someone fit through. So I do worry if they don't have a striker to come in that's not Jamie Vardy. Iheanacho, I don't think, is not really going to be the guy that's going to bag them 20 goals a season. So if Jamie Vardy's not fit for these Europa League games, I think they're going to have to prioritise one competition or the other. So if they want to do well in the Premier League, you've got to, at least rest Jamie Vardy until he's fully fit, because as you can see right now, they're not really competitive without him. Yeah, as disappointing as it was for Leicester, very impressive performance again for Aston Villa, digging in, getting the point, keeping another clean sheet away from home, and making it 4 wins from 4 to start the Premier League season, which is something I don't think anybody saw coming. So fair play to Aston Villa and everything they are doing. 2 teams in the next game who are very underwhelming to start the season and very underwhelming again in this game, and provided us with our first 0-0 draw of the season, unfortunately, was West Brom Burnley. Peter predicted a 4-3 win for West Brom. I really wish that was the case, but that would have been far better than what we had to endure on Monday night. It was just terrible, and the fact they charged £14.95 to watch it was the cherry on top. It was just a joke of a football match. And the only 2 players that came out of this game with any kind of credit were the 2 goalkeepers. I thought they were the 2 players, kept out a number of good opportunities for both teams, but ultimately, disappointing result for both teams.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by how good Johnson is in goal. Never really watched much of him whilst he was in the Championship, and I think he's come from the Manchester United academy, if I'm right. Yeah, he's proven to be a very good goalkeeper and of a high quality. So it'll be interesting to see, even if West Brom do continue to struggle, which I think we all at this point can only see relegation. I know we're only 5 games in, but I can't see them picking up results throughout the season. So he could already be a goalkeeper who the other teams in the league might be eyeing up, because he's definitely showing himself to be of a Premier League standard. So it's good to see.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't have a huge amount to say about this game because it just wasn't the goal fest that I thought it was going to be, which was very disappointing. But yeah, 0-0 probably was the safer prediction, and it turned out to be the case. It's a shame how the weekend sort of kicked off with just goals all over the place, controversy, incidents, etc., and then it just really went out with a whimper, because the last game that we had on Monday night as well, Leeds against Wolves, was a 1-0 win to Wolves. Yeah, just not a great game, except for a couple of big moments, one being the goal, obviously a disallowed goal, and then what I thought should have been a red card for Jimenez towards the end of the game as well, which was a fairly interesting incident. I don't know if either of you picked up on that, but it just reminded me very similarly of the incident with Son last year when he sort of got fouled, went down, sort of kicked his leg out and got a red card. Jimenez did exactly the same towards the end of this game, and VAR just decided, I think, not even to look at it, which really surprised me. It's a shame that was probably, for me, the most exciting moment of the game, wondering whether he was going to get sent off or not.
Yeah, I believe the reason Jimenez wasn't sent off is because the referee saw the incident and decided that it didn't warrant sending off. I think if Jimenez had actually made proper contact, it would have been a different scenario, but he kind of almost just brushed him, and the Leeds player didn't really make anything of it, which also, I think it was actually probably in Jimenez's favour.
Yeah, I thought this was Leeds' worst performance of the season. Unfortunately, it came in a game that they probably thought was winnable, but they just didn't really look like they got going at any point. A couple of players didn't really have good games when you'd expect them to. Click was almost non-existent when he was someone I thought was going to be instrumental early on in the season. Harrison again and Bamford didn't really have any chances, unfortunately, in front of goal. So Portugal, who I'm going to refer to them for the rest of this game because of the nice claret kit, they didn't really look threatened at any point. And I think defensively now they found a balance that's really, really good for sorry, I'm going to say Portugal again. Having Semedo and Seiso as those attacking wing-backs, and they do get forward really well. And then you've got that stability now. Hadn't really seen much of Kilman before this season, but he looks really solid back there. And then you've got Conor Cody and Willy Bolly as well. So defensively, I think Wolves now have that set up. And as you saw in this game, I think they're going to be very difficult to break down.
Yeah, definitely Kilman really impressed me that game. And I think he got man of the match, did he, in that game? I think. Very impressive. And I think, if I'm right today, he's signed a new contract, keeping him there for a few more years. So good positive signs for Wolves as well. They'll definitely be pleased with the way they contained Leeds' attacking threat, because they really sort of nullified it, didn't they? But yeah, overall, not the most exciting game we saw all weekend.
Right, just 1 or 2 takeaways from that weekend, I guess. So the shock results have continued. We didn't expect them to. I don't think anyone really expected it to be a long-term thing, but I think it's starting to prove that fans make a huge difference in football matches in the Premier League. Aston Villa and Everton both won all their games so far this season. Oh, sorry, Everton drew, obviously, but, unbeaten in a derby game. and you just wouldn't expect half of these results. I mean, West Ham coming back from 3-0 down, Southampton getting a 3-3 draw at Chelsea, Everton drawing with Liverpool, and Aston Villa getting an away win against Leicester. Just results you just wouldn't see coming. And I guess you've got to ask the question now, does this make Aston Villa and Everton title contenders?
Well, I think, Angus, you said a couple of weeks ago, didn't you, should we start considering Everton as genuine title contenders? And I think at the time, I almost sort of thought, well, yeah, on their current form, yes, but can they carry it on? But consistently, they've been performing at the highest possible level now every single game, and their performances have maintained a really good consistency. So if they can carry on like this, then there's no reason they can't be considered title contenders. I think I would stick with what I said last week about Villa, that I think the wheels will fall off for them at some stage. They've had some really good performances so far. I think they might suffer from the similar sort of situation as we've just been talking about with Leicester, where their squad is potentially not as deep as it would need to be to really mount a challenge for those positions at the top of the table. All it takes is a couple of injuries and they're in real trouble. Whereas Everton, I think, have actually proved that they've probably got more squad depth than some of us actually realised when we started the season.
Yeah, I definitely think Everton are likely to sustain, perhaps not all the way through to the end of the season, an actual title challenge, but I think they'll sustain it at least leading into Christmas and onwards. I think if James Rodriguez keeps up this form, which is in, Calvert-Lewin keeps up the form, I can't see anything but them being up there and challenging, especially when you consider injuries like Virgil van Dijk coming into Liverpool. That's taken a major hit towards them. Man City don't look solid yet. They're not winning games easily, not the Man City which we know. So I think Everton's results so far show and indicate that they could quite well sustain a long title run.
Yeah, it's funny. You look down the Premier League table at the moment and you see Manchester City lurking outside the top 10, Manchester United lurking outside the top 10, Arsenal in 9th, and in the top 2 you've got Aston Villa and Everton. I mean, it's much like the 1970s, I think, when Aston Villa were the dominant force in English football. It's just really strange to see, and it will be interesting to see if these results continue the whole way through the season, whether this will be a caveated season, whether fans will see it as almost that season where fans weren't there, so it's kind of null and void. But I don't think, in my opinion, I would label it that way. I just think, certain teams are finding their rhythm and finding less pressure in front of less fans. And it's really refreshing to watch, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we're certainly getting some exciting games, aren't we? So if that's a product of the fans not being in the stadiums, then we're benefiting from it in terms of the games that we watch from home, whilst we're obviously missing out from going to see our own teams play. There's that to balance it out to an extent. I think my main worry for Everton would unfortunately be Jordan Pickford. If he doesn't pick up some form, I see him being a massive stumbling block in them challenging for the title or even challenging for top 4, because he seems to have a mistake in him every single game at the moment. Obviously, his mistake at the weekend didn't cost them in terms of he didn't get sent off, but then I thought his goalkeeping for a couple of the shots that Liverpool had was pretty suspect as well. So I think if Everton really do want to be considered serious title contenders, I wouldn't be surprised if they went on and maybe signed a new goalkeeper in January. I know that might seem harsh on Pickford, who's been pretty good for them consistently, but recently I think he's been shocking, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually did a bit of research about the goalkeeper they signed towards the end of the window from Roma, Robin Olsen. He's actually got some fairly decent calibre, to be honest. He's the goalkeeper that was in goal for Roma when they beat Barcelona in the Champions League. I believe they won 3-0 in Rome, and he was the goalkeeper that night. I do think he's probably better than some people think he is. And I do think he'd probably do a more consistent job than Pickford's doing at the moment. So whether Ancelotti will roll the dice and change the goalkeeper, I'm not sure, but I do think Pickford kind of looks a little bit lost in some of these games, and he could do with a break, perhaps outside of the limelight. I touched on it earlier. The West Brom game against Burnley was one of the highlights from this week's Sky Sport packages. They were one of the games on the pay-per-view option, the box office. And that game cost £14.95, as is standard for all these games now that are on box office. And to me, games like this just fully compounded why this is such a bad idea. Yes, I get they had to change something because they're losing all this money through TV rights and matches being broadcast for free to the masses. But the fact that you're charging £15 to watch two very, very average teams in the Premier League compete and provide a 0-0 draw for £15 for a 0-0, it's just disgraceful. And I think all they had to do was make these matches reasonably priced. I don't think fans would have minded having to pay to watch their team every weekend, because they do that anyway. They go into the grounds, they're used to it every season. But you can't expect a fan to pay £15 to sit there and watch a match from his own front room and, be rewarded with nothing but just a as average stream. I think it's just a really, really poor decision from all the big corporations that go into broadcasting, and I really hope it gets changed before too many fans give away their money.
To me, it's a huge kick in the teeth. As a fan who goes to matches, there's going to be a lot of people now who are going to be financially struggling with what's happened through COVID. Yes, I understand the teams are not in the financially strong position which they once were, but nonetheless, you've seen them spend ridiculous sums of money throughout the transfer window. Players are still on ludicrous wages. The £15 to them would mean nothing, but £15 to your normal fan, that might be for some people at the moment, could be the difference between the food they're buying each week. We're in a very hard time for a lot of people, and I think it's insulting by both the corporations who are backing this and have decided this is a good idea, and the fact that only one team in the Premiership voted against it, and that was Leicester City.
Yeah, I think it is a really, really poor decision that they've made, and I think they've seen the backlash. I think the best example of the backlash that I've seen, which I actually think is fantastic, is what the Newcastle and Man United fans did to group together and sort of agree to boycott that pay-per-view £15 and instead donate that money to a local food bank. I would love to see that become a trend across like all of the clubs in the Premier League, really sort of making a statement to the people sat in the big Premier League offices that actually there are much more important things that people could be spending that money on. There are people out there that are really struggling, and asking people to pay £15 on top of their existing subscriptions to those channels to watch games that they're not even able to go to watch live if they wanted to. It is an insult, and I think it's really important that people do stand up to that. I found it funny as well when sort of BBC News and Sky News and that were reporting on the food bank thing from Newcastle Man United. They probably didn't comment on the fact that most of those fans were probably still watching the match somehow, just not through the official pay-per-view version. But they probably can't really report on that without slandering a few people.
I was going to say, it's not like you are forced to pay to watch these matches. They are available on certain websites. We're not going to give out any links here on the podcast, but if you do some searching in Google, you're going to be able to find these streams for free pretty much. And the fact, like you said, that these fans are giving money to charities, food banks, and I think that's such a great idea. And if every Premier League club could unite every time their teams play these matches and donate that money to charities, food banks, that's just a massive statement to every team in the Premier League, just to do the right thing. And maybe you'll give the players some perspective because they are fortunate, and this doesn't affect them, but it affects the masses. And it is important to keep perspective in these times.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're all united as a football fan base on our opinion of that. I don't think there's many people out there that think it's justified. So I wonder if we will see a reversal of that. I think it will take someone quite high up to show some real humility and just actually say, you know what, we got this wrong. Let's accept that we got it wrong and reverse it. And Angus, as you said, I think they probably do deserve to give fans an apology. I think it would be very unlikely that we'll see that, but it would be a great start to sort of maybe repairing some of that gap and divide that there is between the sort of the normal fans and the people with way more money in society, like those working for these big corporations. Right, so moving on to some predictions for the upcoming fixtures. My predictions last week were absolutely abysmal. I'll get that in there before anyone else gets to mention it.
You've got a lot of making up to do after last week. You kind of let yourself down there.
Yeah, I've got a lot of ground to catch up, definitely. So we're starting off with first game, which a Friday night game. I think first Friday night game of the season, Aston Villa against Leeds. Now, at the start of the season, you'd have felt that would be a pretty easy game to call, and I think most people would have gone for Leeds, but Villa obviously 4 wins in a row. Leeds didn't look that great against Wolves, so maybe not the best form coming into this. I think it's a really, really tough one. I think it's one of the toughest games to call we've had so far. I do think Leeds will be the stronger team coming through, and I do think Leeds will come away with the 3 points, but I don't think it's going to be a massive victory for them. I think 1-0. I could be wrong. I feel like Villa will be annoyed about that because they'll think they should be back to score goals in this game at the very least. But at some stage, it's got to go wrong for Villa, and I think maybe this will be the game.
Villa have obviously been so good that I thought if Leeds were going to carry on their momentum, this could really be a clash of like two teams who are banging form. But Leeds obviously dropped points against Wolves. Villa got that win against Leicester, and they're kind of going opposite ways in the table at the moment. Unfortunately for Villa, I don't think they're going to sustain their form. at least maybe not with a win. I do think this game's going to be a draw. I think Leeds will come out improved. They'll need a better performance than what they showed against Wolves. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one.
I'm going to go a different result again. So I can see Villa winning for the fifth game in a row. I think I've lost my mind to be saying that, but Villa to win the match 2-1. And I think we're going to get a Grealish goal. And I think it's going to be a special game. And it's going to be a special game for the Villa fans because they're going to be top of the league after 5 games.
Right, nice early start on Saturday. Peter's team, West Ham at home against Manchester City. Obviously, West Ham are building on some massive momentum at the moment. 3 really good results in a row. Don't think anybody saw those results coming. And then Man City, who haven't really hit form this season. They've looked a bit sketchy, haven't really hit their stride as we're used to seeing from Manchester City. It's an interesting game to call because you would think that West Ham are going to carry on that momentum, but City, a team who've got a good result tonight in the Champions League, probably going to bounce back a little bit. And obviously they've got 2 wins in a row now, so they won't be bouncing back as such, but they'll be looking to make it 3 wins in a row. And I think they will do it, actually. Unfortunately for West Ham, I don't think their form doesn't continue, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 City win.
Yeah, I also can't see West Ham picking up anything in this match. I think they might get a goal, but I think it's going to be relatively comfortable for Man City. I think a 3-1 win, like a bridge too far for you.
Yeah, I think I have to say that's fair enough. I was just looking at the past fixtures between the two teams. I think Man City have won the last 11 meetings between the two sides in all competitions. They scored 4 goals in 4 of those matches and 5 goals in 2 of those matches. So it's not a great track record for West Ham going up against them. I do think we're on better form than we have been going into a lot of those games. I think we've got a better sort of overall feel about the team. But yeah, I think 2-1 or 3-1, I think based on the defensive frailties I saw against Tottenham, I'm going to go with 3-1 to Man City.
Right, next up is Fulham against Crystal Palace. To me, I think this is more of a derby than Crystal Palace versus Brighton, but what do I know about geography? Both teams probably pretty keen on a win here. Fulham almost got their win against Sheffield United last weekend, but they couldn't quite get it home. And then Palace just, kind of stuttered a little bit lately. So again, it's difficult to call a Fulham win, and I was really close to predicting a Fulham win in this one, but for some reason, my brain wouldn't let me do it. So I'm going for a 2-2 draw in this one.
I'm going to go for a draw as well, but based on what we've seen from Palace and based on what we've seen from Fulham, I'm going to go for a 0-0. Palace will play exactly how they have done in every game so far, and Fulham haven't looked very potent going forward. So yeah, I can't see there being any goals in this one, to be honest.
I'd love to say this is going to be the goal for the one like Pete predicted last week between West Brom and Burnley. But I'd just be lying. I think I'm going to have to follow you for the 0-0. I think it's going to be a really tedious game. I think Fulham are going to be set up to just grind out a result. They're going to need something. And I think Palace, well, we all know what Roy Hodgson's going to do all season. And it's not going to be fun, but it's going to be what it is. However, the next game, I think, could be one of the highlights of the weekend. Well, 2 teams who have shown that they have their frailties at the back, but when going forward, they are both clinical and deadly. So United, Chelsea, I'm seeing quite a big result. I'm going to go with 3-2 to Chelsea.
Interesting. Yeah, I think this has the potential to be not one of the games of the weekend, they're one of the games of the season. They're 2 teams who just don't seem to care about defending too much. And for a neutral watching this game, I think that can only be beneficial. I think there will be a lot of goals as well. United have looked very good attacking-wise, as of Chelsea. So, yeah, I'm going to go the opposite to what Angus has predicted there and go for a 3-2 United win instead.
Yeah, I have to agree with both of you guys. I think there's going to be a lot of goals in this game. 2 teams with really poor defensive records so far. So, looks as though there's going to be a really good day if you're a striker for either one of these teams. I'm going to go 1 extra on top of what you've gone for and say it's going to be a 3-3 draw. The season seems to like 3-3 draws so far, so we're going to stick 1 more of those in for this weekend.
Yeah, definitely goals, I reckon. And it'll be interesting to see in the next game how Liverpool get on without Virgil van Dijk. They host Sheffield United at Anfield. Anfield's almost a fortress at this point for Liverpool, and it's difficult to see anyone getting points there. Even without Virgil van Dijk, I can only see a Liverpool win here, and a fairly comfortable one as well. I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool in this one.
Or will Rhian Brewster come back to Liverpool and show them why they shouldn't have sold him? I don't think so, to be honest. So I think, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Liverpool in this game.
I also can't see Sheffield United picking up anything in this match. I think Anfield is such a solid place for Liverpool. I think a 3-0 win for them. I just can't see Sheffield United getting anything out of this game.
Yeah, I think if there's a game that Liverpool will have wanted off the back of losing Virgil van Dijk, playing against Sheffield United is a great game for their defenders to regroup, find their partnerships and get themselves together and keep a clean sheet and get some confidence. So the next game coming up on that, the first game of Sunday, Southampton against Everton. Everton flying high at the moment. Southampton with some good form recently as well. Two teams coming into it with confidence. Maybe not as easy to call as you'd think if you looked at the league table. I think Southampton could really trouble Everton in this, especially if Adams and Ings carry on their good partnership. I can see this game being not a walk in the park for Everton, but I do think they'll come away with the 3 points in the end. I think it could be a 2-1 win to Everton.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to agree with you exactly, actually. It's rare that I agree with anyone and copy the scoreline, but to me, 2-1 Everton, unfortunately, from a Southampton point of view, seems like the right result. We tend not to do very well at home or score many goals at home either, and regardless of whether there are fans there or not, it seemed to be the trend. And up against a team like Everton, who are on such great form, scoring goals left, right, and centre, I don't think they'll even miss Richarlison that much in this game. So, yeah, unfortunately, going to go for a 2-1 Everton win.
It's interesting because I was going to say almost slightly opposite to you there. I think a positive going into this match is that Richarlison's not there. He's the quickest out of their attackers, and also Ings has a pretty good track record against Everton. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw, but I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, fingers crossed that one comes in. Be good to see Southampton pick up points and probably propel them up the table a little bit. Up next, we've got Wolves against Newcastle. A game I'm not massively excited about, I've got to be honest. Wolves did look good against Leeds, but whether that was just a one-off, it's difficult to tell at this point because Wolves have been a bit inconsistent this season. And you can say the same for Newcastle, tend to go from one weekend to the other not really knowing what to expect. So you would think that Wolves are the better side in this contest, so I'm just going to go for a narrow 1-0 Wolves win.
I think Wolves are going to look to build on the win against Leeds, which is, although not the flashes of results and the flashes of performances, I think it was solid. They showed a much more solid defensive line throughout the game. I think they're going to build on that, and it's going to be a 2-0 Wolves win.
See, I'm not sure it's going to be so comfortable for them. I think we've said so far about Newcastle that they sort of blow hot and cold. You never know which Newcastle's going to turn up. I just wonder if this will be one of the games they do turn up against the Wolves side. That yes, they got the win against Leeds, but they didn't look incredible. I can see Newcastle getting a win here. I'm going to go for a narrow 1-0 win to Newcastle.
Right, next we have Arsenal versus Leicester to cap off Sunday night. This game historically provides a lot of goals. I remember a couple of games at the Emirates a couple of seasons ago, just absolute goal fests. I'm not sure this is going to be the same. Don't know whether Leicester will have Jamie Vardy to call on this one. And you would think that Arsenal will be back to their best, back at home, after a tough game at Man City, and they'll be looking to get 3 points on the board, and I think they will pretty comfortably, actually. I'm just going to go for a 2-0 win in this one.
I think after the performance Leicester put in against Villa, I think Arsenal will take it one step further, and I think they're going to absolutely tear them apart. I think the defence is looking a little bit shaky at the back, and I don't think their attack is even going to threaten Arsenal. I think once Arsenal get a bit of momentum going, they're going to really put them to the sword. So I'm going to go with a 4-0 Arsenal win, one of the biggest results of the season.
And I'm going to go nice and in the middle and go for a 3-0 Arsenal win. Sad, really, that none of us can even see Leicester scoring a goal, but I think that's the way things are going at the moment. And then moving on to not another great-looking game, to be honest, Brighton against West Brom coming up next. I'm going to have to go for another 0-0 in this one, to be honest. I know Brighton have played some nice football against some of the other teams, but I feel like West Brom just have that effect on teams that they just make the game really boring. So we're in for another 0-0 on Monday night, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's weird. I think this game week's provided a lot of iffy games, maybe games that the casual football fan won't be watching. This is another one for me. Brighton have looked pretty good this season, though, in my opinion. They were unlucky not to get the win against Palace, and they've been unlucky in previous games, of course, against Manchester United, where they were unlucky to drop points there. And I think they're a much better team than West Brom, personally. And I think they're going to show it in this game, and it might be a statement game from Brighton. And I'm going to go for a 3-0 Brighton win and hope there are some goals.
Also, I think it's going to be quite a comfortable game for Brighton. I think they've shown that they can attack and they play some really lovely flowing football. And I just can't see how West Brom are going to stop it. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 Brighton win.
Right, next up, and the final game of the game week sees Burnley host Tottenham. Burnley obviously got the draw, got 1 point on the board against West Brom. Tottenham dropping points against West Ham, but looked pretty good in parts of it. It's a difficult game to predict because Burnley always have that resilient look at home, especially on a Monday night under the floodlights, kind of different atmosphere there. Even though there are no fans, it seems like a very intimidating place to go. And I don't know whether that will faze Tottenham, it might do, and I think that'll probably prevent them from playing their expansive attacking football. I think they'll get a win, but I think it will be quite a narrow one, and maybe Burnley will put up a good showing or a good fight. But I'm gonna go for just a narrow Tottenham win, so 1-0.
I think we're going to see that opening 20 minutes of Spurs, but for a much longer period of the game, and I think they're going to really threaten that Burnley side and that defensive line of Burnley's. I think we're going to go with a 3-0 win.
Yeah, I can't see Mourinho letting Tottenham make the same mistakes that they made on Sunday against West Ham. So I think they will come out firing. I think they will score several goals in this game. And I think they will also have worked really hard on their defence over this week. So I reckon, probably I'm going to have to agree with Angus on this one and go for a 3-0 win to Tottenham.
All right, and that brings an end to predictions and also the end of this week's 3PL podcast. A massive thank you to everyone who's supported and continued to listen every week. We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week for a summary of all the action from game week 6. In the meantime, you can find us on social media, on Twitter at 3PL Podcast, or on YouTube using the same name. And if you do have any questions that you want us to cover in next week's podcast, just make sure to drop them either on Twitter or on YouTube, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. Until then, take it easy.